Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad, Tehami. The UN Security Council has discussed the 17th report of the Secretary General on the threat posed by Daesh to the international peace and security. This report was presented to the 15-member body by the head of the UN Counterterrorism Office as well as the executive director of the Counterterrorism Committee. The report says, let me quote, with the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan, the UN member states expressed concern over the proliferation of large quantities of weapons and other military equipment within Afghanistan and into neighboring states. Unquote. The head of the UN Counterterrorism Office, Mr. Vladimir Voronkov, says the situation in Afghanistan was growing increasingly complex. Now, regarding the IS Khorasan, its presence in the war-ravaged Afghanistan has been estimated, according to this report, from 4,000 to 6,000, including the fighters of this particular group and their family members. Mr. Voronkov says that ISK is becoming more sophisticated in its attacks against the Taliban in Afghanistan as well as the international targets, as it has got hands on the NATO caliber weapons also. On the other side, what we have seen, Zabiullah Mujahid, the interim Afghan Authority spokesman, has rejected the claims made by this particular report that was presented to the UN Security Council, saying that it was unfounded. And he went on to say that since the Taliban takeover, activities of Daesh group in Afghanistan have been reduced to zero. In today's program, we'll be taking this major development up for discussion. Also, we'll be discussing with our esteemed panelists the statements coming from different member states of the UN Security Council and the recommendations made by them as well. For that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Naveed Aman Khan. He is senior analyst. Mr. Naveed, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. At the same time, on Skype, we are being joined by Lieutenant General retired Raza Muhammad Khan. He is former president of the National Defense University. General Raza, once again, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Let's begin the discussion with you, Mr. Naveed. Now, looking at this particular report which was presented to the Security Council, what do you understand? What sense do you make out of it?
Jawad, it is entirely different from that statement which the Afghan government has given. The UN report is about the expansion of the terrorist groups in Afghanistan and in the region, especially Daesh, and the collaboration of different terrorist groups in Afghanistan are getting strengthened in a very alarming, way. But the Afghan government has denied it, and they say that it has reduced up to the zero level since they have come in power.
The activities of Daesh have been reduced to zero. They have specifically talked about Daesh. There was a response from
you cannot discriminate it. The activity of terrorism is activity of terrorism.
Right.
Once it is done, if it is claimed or it is not claimed, it shows that the intensity and the volume of terrorism is undenied in the region. So, if they say that Daesh is inactive in Afghanistan up to the zero level, it is false. Okay. The alarming situation which has been discussed in UN is based on the facts and the figures. The China has very serious concern about all this. Pakistan has serious concern, but unfortunately, the Afghan government, they don't take the things very seriously, not only within the country or in the region. Right. It is the prime responsibility of the Afghan government to take the things very serious and
uphold their commitments they made to the international community. Let me bring in General Raza also into the discussion. General Raza, by looking at this particular report and then the rejection by the interim Afghan Authority spokesperson, Mr. Zabiullah Mujahid, saying that it is unfounded. Now, which side of this equation do you think carries more weight? The claims made in the United Nations Security Council report or its rebuttal by the Afghan Taliban?
Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I think UN report is based on credible information. Uh, and of course, on verified sources that are reliable. And only after that, such reports are published. And if you recall, this report actually reaffirmed what it had said in June, when it said that actually the TTP is a part of Afghan Emirate, and also pointed out similar concerns. Now, the additional thing I think that has been pointed out about Daesh is that they have now a capability of possessing their own drones, and they are trying to actually enhance uh, their ability in increasing the payload of the drones they have. This is something new, and I think this should be of concern, particularly to Pakistan and all its neighbors. At the same time, while this report says that the capacity of ISIS or Daesh has been reduced because their finances have been targeted. But it also says that their present finances uh, range from about $25 billion to about $1 billion. This is again something of serious concerns, not only to Pakistan but everyone else. And that NATO caliber weapons and equipment are being possessed by them, which were left over by the previous Afghan government and the NDS and others. And of course, that these weapons are being transferred to TTP, and possibly, all the 20 terrorist groups or so, which this report says are there. And again, I'll go back to the previous report of the UN, and which it had said that most of these terrorists they have actually concentrated the east or southeast of Afghanistan, which is bordering Pakistan, and particularly, in Nangarhar, Kunar, Lugar, Paktika, and Khost, etc. So I think the Afghan government needs to take this report very, very seriously rather than condemning it. Uh, and the least that they can do is again present to the world proof, verifiable proof that this report is untrue. And if there are these terrorists there who they think are part of the emirate itself, then that is again even more serious. But they need to disarm uh, all those people who are there in Afghanistan who are actually, according to them, who may not be part of the government, but who may be in possession of these weapons and equipment and posing threats not only to Afghanistan but to the entire region.
Right, General Raza, when we talk about these NATO caliber weapons, so when we talk about that specific time when the international troops were withdrawing from this war-ravaged country after 20 years of their invasion over here, whose prime responsibility was to ensure that these advanced weaponry, NATO caliber weapons are not left just like that, so that they could be possessed later on by the groups on which now the United Nations Security Council and its members are expressing concern?
Actually, I think we are all aware that before leaving the NATO, ISAF had handed over, the charge to the then Afghan government, but it collapsed all of a sudden. For some of the reasons are known to us, are not known to us, and probably you could have another program on that. But it happened, and I think it was essentially the responsibility uh, of Taliban government to do that and to ensure that all the armories or all the ports, so to speak, with the Afghan National Security Forces uh, are seized and that they are not accessible, to these forces of these terrorists. Unfortunately, at that time, they released, many of the prisoners from the jails, and some of them were allowed actually to carry to take these weapons with them. So that was actually a big problem the whole world and for the region. Particularly, it was not handled appropriately by the Taliban government at that time, and therefore you see all this problem which is being created.
Right, Mr. Naveed, do you also think there was only and solely the responsibility of the Afghan Taliban after they took over and the international troops withdrew from that war-ravaged country, since those high NATO caliber weapons were also given to the Afghan National Security and Defense Forces?
Definitely, Jawad, when the American forces left Afghanistan, they left a big number of different sort of weapons in Afghanistan, and it was all deliberate. It was not, just to get rid of the weapons. It was deliberate because they knew that the Afghans or the terrorist groups, they are here, very much here in Afghanistan, and they will capture those weapons, and definitely they will use those weapons against each other or in the region for terrorism. And that is why, when they left Afghanistan, the next moment, the Afghan Taliban and the other groups, they yelled on that stock, and they captured all the weapons, sophisticated of the next level, which are not even available in Pakistan in security forces, like in police, or we don't have that sort of weapons. But the weapons which are being used by the Taliban, Afghan Taliban, and the TTP are of the same level. Who is providing those weapons to them, especially to the Pakistan Taliban? This is a matter of concern for Pakistan. And Pakistan has shown its concern many times to Afghan government. The former Pakistan Prime Minister, the former Pakistan Foreign Minister, the Defense Minister, and this government also, they are showing their concern to Afghan government to just curtail or to limit their limit the Pakistan Taliban in Pakistan for as far as the terrorism is concerned. I don't think that Afghan Taliban can just leave their responsibility aside. It is their prime responsibility to keep the law and order situation in their country and in the region as well, because the prosperity of the region is lies in the hands of the terrorists now. If the terrorism or the terrorists are crushed, the prosperity will prevail in the region. And China has very serious concern about the prosperity of the region, because it is directly affecting China, because they have invested a lot of money on CPEC.
Right, Mr. Naveed, I'll come to this particular aspect of this statement, the concern that is being expressed by the Chinese over there in the UN Security Council after the presentation of this report. Let's talk specifically about the statement which has come forth by Mr. Zabiullah Mujahid, the Afghan Interim Authority spokesperson. Let me quote him, that Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan once again rejects these baseless accusations, and while calling for transparent involvement in such issues, states that in the last 2 years, Afghan security forces, which they claim to be themselves now, have conducted hundreds of continuous operations against illegal weapons and ISIS, as a result of which weapons and ammunition were captured and ISIS operational capabilities were destroyed completely. So what's your analysis of this?
I don't think, I don't agree with the Afghan authorities.
But we have seen they've been eliminating and taking out the key commanders of IS, Khorasan.
It might be, but the concern of the UN is more weighty and is based on the facts and the figures. And Afghan Taliban, they don't realize the intensity of the terrorism in the region, especially the prosperity of Afghanistan is being is taken on stake. So I don't think that the Daesh is limited or Daesh is being crushed by the Afghan Taliban. There's no proof of it. I don't think.
Right, General Raza, what's your understanding of this particular statement by Zabiullah Mujahid? We've seen in the recent past the interim Afghan authorities taking some decisive action and eliminating the key commanders of IS Khorasan. So, by looking at those actions most recently carried out by interim Afghan authorities against the key commanders of ISK, don't you think this particular statement of Zabiullah Mujahid carries weight?
Well, I think in the past they have targeted some ISK leaders, but I think it was those leaders who were posing a challenge to the TTA, the present Afghan government. I think they have not taken action against those Daesh elements or their affiliates, the TTP or BLA or others, or even their affiliates in RAW who are actually uh, living in Afghanistan, and they may be even, some terrorists who have gone from Pakistan and they are residing there, and here in Pakistan they are posing as the missing persons. So all these peoples uh, are criminals and terrorists, and they need to take action against them as well. They have not done that. And I think for them to remain in a state of denial is not going to change the situation. Uh, and therefore, I think that there have been other positive sort of development, like the edict by the Supreme leader, Habatullah Zada Sahab, who had said that, any fighting by Afghan forces or others outside Pakistan, outside Afghanistan, is not a jihad. Uh, that this is just war. But I think they need to now take action or punish all those who are acting against this fatwa or edict. And I think if they do that, probably will change the situation. We're also aware, we've been saying that there is a very clear and present threat from these terrorists to Pakistan, Iran, China, the United States, and other countries, neighboring Afghanistan. And in this UN report, there were two recommendations. Uh, the first recommendation was that these terrorists must be brought to justice, and the second recommendation was that the Security Council should demonstrate international will to cooperatively deal with it. I think that these are the important recommendations on the on which the Security Council needs to take a much more assertive action. And unless that is done, I think these terrorists will continue to emanate from Afghanistan, not only to Pakistan and not only to the region, but even to the entire world.
Right, General Raza, there are a number of points that you have highlighted in your view right now. Let's talk specifically about the edict by the Supreme Leader of the interim Afghan authorities. Now, as you have already mentioned, there is no say of the punishment or how the accountability is going to happen if someone violates that particular edict, which creates a differentiation between jihad or the simple war. Right, so by this very edict, we have also seen a number of reports suggesting that there are internal divisions within the Afghan Taliban also. So after announcement of this edict, do you think this edict is going to have similar sort of effect all across?
I think there are these reports that there are some differences, between the Qatari Taliban, the Afghani Taliban. But I think addict once given is uh, itself in, I think, the national and the national security interest of Afghanistan. It is in the interest of the political and economic interests of Afghanistan. And therefore, I think all factions of the Taliban must not only support him, but also implement it. And as far as we are concerned, we need to continuously engage both the factions, Taliban, at the highest level. Whether it is Dada Sahab or whether it is Haqqani Sahab or others in the Afghan government. And all these concerns needs to be continuously pointed out to them. And I think four countries that are more directly influenced, and which I name like Pakistan, Iran, China, the United States, I think they need to work cooperate and share intelligence on all this and take other measures to target their finance, all these terrorists. In the same report, there was a mention of the Daesh or even the Afghan Taliban using cryptocurrency if they do not have any access to dollars or other international currency. And if the TTP or the Daesh are also using the same techniques, then I think that would be very easy to target. And I think the United States and China, in this case, they can cooperate to make sure that those sources of their funding are denied to them, not only in Afghanistan, but in other countries as well.
Right, Mr. Naveed, what's your understanding of this particular edict? After the report suggesting internal divisions within the Afghan Taliban, do you think that edict is going to be applicable all across with the same force?
I don't think that the Afghan Taliban are divided at any such subject or matter. They have consensus on the use of arms. They use arms, and though they have tried to crush Daesh in Afghanistan, but two, three, or four leaders, if they are crushed or killed, it doesn't mean that the entire Daesh has been crushed in the region or in the country. In Afghanistan, they are having relation or influence on Pakistan Taliban as well. And Pakistan Taliban are carrying on their terrorist activities in Pakistan. In July, 14 or 15 terrorist attacks were made in Pakistan, and in August, 7 attacks till now has been launched in Pakistan. It means that they are being supported by them, and the Pakistan Taliban are being supported by someone we have concern on it, and that is Afghan Taliban, or that is Daesh as well. So all these terrorist groups, they are influencing and they are marching towards Pakistan border, which is alarming situation. And one thing which is very important is this: according to this report in UN, it should have also shown concern on Pakistan Taliban as well in their report. The Pakistan Taliban, they are equally important and they are equally damaging the country and the region as Daesh are doing their activities in Afghanistan. So it should also have been addressed in UN.
This particular report, but they have also mentioned that they are also providing these NATO caliber weapons to the Daesh. They have mentioned Band Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. Of course, everybody understands that Band Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan.
The same weapons are being used by Pakistan Taliban.
Exactly. On phone line, we are now joined by Mr. Ziaur Rehman, senior journalist. Mr. Ziaur Rehman, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. But looking at this particular report that was presented to the United Nations Security Council, and then the rejection coming from the interim Afghan Authority spokesperson. So which side do you think carries more weight?
Yeah, thank you. I think it is not the first time that the UN Security Council has been expressed the reservation of the Pakistan and the other neighboring countries about the ISKP and the TTP and other groups, which is basically posing threats to their interests, like in the neighboring countries. So we have seen such report in the past, and they are basically forcing Afghan Taliban that you have to fulfill the commitment you have made in the Doha Agreement that you will not allow any foreign militant, whether it is TTP, whether it is Al Qaeda, whether it is TIM or IMU. But we have seen that Afghan Taliban only reject the allegation, but we know that all of them are there. We have seen several TTP leadership has been killed recently, okay? And we have also seen that Al Qaeda, like chief, was killed there in Afghanistan last year. So there is no weight in Afghan Taliban refusal that we don't have harbor any foreign militant. Yes.
Right now, Mr. Ziaur Rehman, looking at this statement of the interim Afghan Authority spokesperson, Mr. Zabiullah Mujahid, if we consider if they are able to reduce the activities of Daesh in Afghanistan, presumably to zero, so if we consider this statement 100% true, do you expect similar sort of action by the interim Afghan authorities to be taken against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan's concern also?
Actually, one thing is that Afghan Taliban have their own problem. On one side, ISKP has become a very big challenge for them because now ISKP has been challenging, like portraying itself the only remaining global jihad outfit because Taliban are now states in Afghanistan. Okay. Second thing is Pakistan is concerned about the TTP, which have increased their attacks and using these US abandoned weapons, which were in control of the Taliban authorities, but now they are in the hands of TTP. Okay, so we have seen a rise in attacks on the bordering district like Shrob and other districts, and also we have seen that many Afghan nationals who were the part of the Afghan Taliban in the past, they have also involved in the terror activities. Our army chiefs have also said it several times. So I think the issue is the Afghan Taliban. One, they are under severe pressure from globally, particularly from Pakistan and China and other Federation countries, to crack down on their militants on their soil. Second, ISKP has been challenging them. So Afghan Taliban fear that if we launch any crackdown on the TTP seriously, so this TTP element can join ISKP and they will become a major big problem for them. Yeah. So Afghan Taliban is expecting on things.
Mr. Ziaur Rehman, when we talk about, there are two statements now. The U.S. ambassador at the UN Security Council, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, in the meeting said that the Afghan authorities must deny safe havens to the terrorist groups, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS, Khorasan. At the same time, we see a statement by Mr. Mujahid asserting that the main cause of the difficulties in Afghanistan were unilateral sanctions against the UN and others, along with freezing of its assets. Don't you think this particular statement or the concern expressed by Mujahid is justified? If the US is not willing to release the frozen assets of the Afghan people, how can they expect to take those concrete actions against the terrorist outfits over there?
Okay, so one thing is very clear that the West, particularly US, they are more interested or they're more worried about the transnational militant groups like the ISKP and Al Qaeda. Okay, they're not more concerned about the TTP or Afghan Taliban because they believe that it is a local issue. But issue is that these local issues become transnational when you leave them unsolved. We have seen that many TTP people switching to the ISKP. If you see who basically formed the ISKP in Afghanistan, it was basically the former TTP militants who were hiding in Afghanistan, Kunar province and Nangarhar, and they, in 2015 early, they basically formed ISKP in the region. Okay, The second thing is, as you said, that the sanctions. So one thing is that Taliban are also they know that ISKP and these groups are basically a cause of worriness for the U.S. administration. So they always say that okay, we are under sanctions. So if you remove sanctions, so we can do something. And we know that although U.S. has limited interaction with the Taliban administration, like they allowed them to reprint the currency and other things, but they are not openly dealing with it. I think currently the China and secondly Turkey and Qatar. These are the three countries which are carrying out more open diplomatic ties with the Taliban administration. The other countries, they are basically following, seeing what is the US doing. So yeah.
Mr. Ziaur Rehman, senior journalist, thank you very much for joining us on the phone line. We really appreciate your precious time. General Raza, when we presumably consider this statement that the activities of Daesh in Afghanistan have been reduced to zero, a statement given by Zabiullah Mujahid, if we take it on the face of it as a very true statement, 100% true, so can we also expect such type of action by the interim Afghan authorities against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan?
Well, I think action should speak for them rather than their words. And so far, we haven't seen any action there against TTP or BLA or others, ISIS, or at least break the nexus amongst all these terrorist groups. I don't think that they are even aware of that. But I think continuous concern of the international community needs to be communicated to them at the highest possible level. Maybe one day they will themselves realize that what the international community is telling them is the truth and that they should not deny this truth. The second thing is, of course, our own preparations to defend ourselves, irrespective of, what the Afghan spokesperson may say or not say. And I'm referring to improving our vigil and security on the Pak-Afghan borders and the Pak-Iran borders, particularly when it relates to the crossing of people, from the countries of Afghanistan. Although the fencing has already been completed, on the Pak-Afghan border, but as you know, it is not completed on the Pak-Iran border, and they are misusing that border. They're also misusing, the many legal crossing points by traders in the garb of traders and garb of other people coming to Pakistan for the purpose of medical aid and other things. So we need to improve our vigilance there. And of course, we have our national action plan. We should never forget its implementation. Also, the provincial action plans needs to be revamped. The provincial counter-terrorism department, as we have been saying again and again, they need to be strengthened, particularly, in this interim, period. People may take advantage of the scenario, and therefore I think all the counter-terrorism department, whether at the federal or the provincial levels, they need to be aware of all these threats and take extra measures. The people of Pakistan again they need to be mindful of their duties as responsible citizens to identify the supporters, the facilitators, and the financiers of terrorists within Pakistan, terrorists of all hues, and to immediately inform the security agencies about them. So it has to be, a wholesome sort of an effort internally as well as, externally to control and defeat this menace of terrorism.
Mr. Naveed, I reckon you were anxiously waiting to give your opinion regarding this particular question. If they have eliminated ISK from the soil of Afghanistan completely by the statement of Zabiullah Mujahid, can we expect similar sort of action against the TTP?
We should, if they do, in Afghanistan. But saying is different and doing is different. UN is not relying on the statement which Afghan spokesman and the Afghan government has given in response to the UN statement. They say that that the Daesh is very much active there in Afghanistan, but the Afghan government, they deny it. Similarly, Pakistan says that you need to detach yourself from Pakistan Taliban, and they say that we have detached, but saying is different and doing is different. They have not detached themselves from TTP. That is why the TTP is getting strength from Afghan Taliban, and the terrorist activities of TTP are continuing in Pakistan. They have not stopped their terrorist activities and attacks in Pakistan. As far as the network is concerned or the finances are concerned, as General Sahab was saying, if America has seized their accounts of Daesh and accounts of suppose Afghan Taliban, they have alternative ways and means of managing the funds in the region, and they have enough ways and means. The smuggling is continuing. The network is very much intact in Afghanistan and around Afghanistan. That is why they are having weapons, the most modern equipments and the weapons in Afghanistan and in Pakistan as well. As far as the TTP activities are concerned, they are using those sort of sophisticated weapons against Pakistan. From where they are getting all this? The money, the funds, or the weapons, or the technology, or the training, from where they are getting? It shows that some network is very much intact and very effectively working to help Afghan Taliban, to help Daesh, to help Pakistan Taliban in Pakistan. So we need to address that nexus. Right. And we need to target that nexus and crush that nexus. Unless we crush that nexus, we cannot have peace in the region.
Right. Unfortunately, we're short of time. I'll have to go back to General Raza once again. General Raza, you already mentioned that the countries in the region, including Pakistan, China, Iran, as well as the US, should collaborate in order to counter terrorism emanating from the Afghan soil. Russia happens to be one of the key players in the region also. But looking at the statements which have come from the representatives of China as well as Russia, for example, when we talk about the Russian statement, it holds the collective West's intervention in the region for the state of affairs the major powers in the region are facing right now vis-a-vis Afghanistan. Similar sort of a statement by the Chinese side, saying the double standards and selectivity in the application of the sanctions only condones terrorist activities and undermines the work of counter-terrorist activities. Do you think there is a lack of unanimity and understanding of the real problem among the major stakeholders, including the US, China, and Russia in particular?
You see, China, the United States, and Russia, have different perceptions of their security, and their control of Asia. But I think this is one area where they need to cooperate. And that cooperation could be through the auspices of the UN Security Council. And I think here their national interests coincide. So I think I don't see any reason why they are not cooperating more actively on this. And I think this cooperation, as I said, other than intelligence sharing could be in the field of giving other incentives and disincentives to the Taliban government. Uh, when it comes to Pakistan, we know that we are given them a preferential trade agreement since they came to power. Uh, so I think this may not continue for a very long time if they do not change their policies and eliminate the terrorists posing threat to Pakistan. Similarly, the 2.83 million Afghan refugees who are here on our soil, I think the UNHCR should be talking about their return back to Afghanistan because Afghanistan is now claiming that there is complete peace in Afghanistan. If that be so, one does not understand any reason or logic. Why is the government of Pakistan or the UNHCR now not talking of the return of these Afghan refugees back to Afghanistan? So I think while the previous government perhaps was busy, I think in looking after the economy and trying to salvage it. We hope, that this effort will start after the new government comes into power. And I think the base for that could actually be established even by the interim government of Pakistan.
Right, Mr. Naveed, last quick comments regarding the concerns expressed by Russia and China both. What do they depict?
They definitely they have very serious concern about terrorism in the region because Russia is also being affected and China is also being affected.
When Russia says it was collective West's intervention and they plundered the natural resources in Afghanistan, they remained over here for 20 years, but they were unable to defeat Al Qaeda.
True. I agree with the Russian statement and what Russians and the Chinese say. It is true and it is the reality that the West and America has been plundering everything from Afghanistan, and what has been left over in Afghanistan is weapon and terrorism. And the Daesh, Afghan Taliban, and Pakistan Taliban, all are they are terrorists, and they are extremists in the region, and they are taking the peace of the region in their hands. And it is being sabotaged in the region. So the concern of Russia and China is same, and that is based on the facts of the figures and the reality.
Mr. Naveed,
and one thing is more important is that Pakistan need to clear Afghan Taliban that if terrorism in Pakistan continues, Pakistan will decide and send all those Afghan refugees living in Pakistan back to Afghanistan, because we cannot bear that burden any longer, which we have been bearing for the last 4 decades in Pakistan. Those more than
don't you think that is a requirement on the part of Pakistan to do it? Because we have seen in the recent past the former Defence Minister Khaja Asif also saying that the time has come to resolve this repatriation of the Afghan refugees, regardless of the fact whether terrorism is emanating towards Pakistan from the Afghan soil or not.
It should not be connected with all this. We have beared all this for the last 40 years, 50 years. Now we are tired of it. We are sick of it. We need to send them back to their country because now they are in comfortable situation and we cannot bear it any longer.
Well taken. Mr. Naveed, Aman, Analyst, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News and joining us in the studio. On Sky, we were joined by Lieutenant General retired Raza Mohammed Khan, former President of the National Defence University. General Raza, thank you very much for your time once again, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves and thank you for watching.